Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Puck Watching. Excited to have you all here. Talk about our defense preview, as well as talk about a little bit of preseason happenings for the St. Louis Blues. And we haven't really talked about that yet. And there is some things to talk about because last week we had our Chris Pronger interview, which I hope you guys are enjoying. But now you're 3 preseason games in, and there's kind of some stuff to talk about when it comes to this overall Blues team and some interesting storylines and some people kind of going through the pipeline, getting sent back down, and some player performances. So lots to talk about there, as well as some big news out of Cam Fowler this morning. So we're going to get to all that. But first, Nick, it's been a little bit since a check-in, and there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the landscape of sports right now. But let's get into the first part. Your alma mater, TCU, decides to throw interception in the late goings of yesterday against Arizona State.
Yeah, it wasn't a good – I don't think they deserve that to win that game at all. They got outgained by 300 yards, and they probably still should have won somehow, which is strange to say. Usually you don't say that about a game. But the fumble on their own 15-yard line, they ended up got kind of boned a bit by the refs, I would say, towards the end, but I'm not going to blame them for it. And then they kicked the field goal, and then there's a minute and 20 seconds left, and Hofer throws a really bad interception, missing our number one wide receiver and running back, but, who's making excuses? Not me. So we lost, and we're on to Colorado.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't literally just say that that's almost the exact same thing that happened with BC this weekend, except you guys were up. We were down.
Yeah, we were up the whole game.
Yeah.
The entire game we were winning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were up for a lot of the first half, and then we decided to not as the game went on because, this was a Cal team, by the way, that had lost 35-0 against San Diego State.
Oh, I know.
And I'm thinking to myself going in, I was like, well, I don't think we're going to shut them out. That's just kind of how it works. Like, you're definitely not going to get shut out again. But I just don't understand the fact that you look at the game and you have 14-0 and you're dominating them, and then all of a sudden you lay off the gas pedal against a team like that, and then you just blow it and basically blow your whole season as well on top of that. And I was texting you last night. I think that a 3-9 Boston College team is possible and very possible.
The ACC is pretty bad.
Yeah, they're
pretty bad. I think you guys will be fine. I wouldn't worry about it.
I don't
win the ACC, but I think you could get at least a 6.
Well, yeah, I mean, hopefully, because we made bowls for a long time, a lot of consistency there, but yet we still managed to lose stupid games like the last 2 weeks with Stanford and now Cal. So heading into Pittsburgh next weekend, that'll be fun. But again, yesterday for both of us, not very exciting, and unfortunately. And obviously, the Cardinals got eliminated 2 days
and swept by the Cubs. They scored 3 runs.
Again, at this point, though, I don't care at all. Like I could care less about what happened in the Cubs series. Although there was a Chicago guy that he almost baited me because I had him on a bet where it was $20. This is a college salary right now, and so it's limited money, but $20. Like, Cubs don't win the Central Division. Easily got that bet because of the Milwaukee Brewers, but he's like, he wanted to bait me into the Cardinals winning the last series and just double down on the 20. I'm like, you think I'm crazy, man?
No, thank you. I know the Cardinals better than you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that sucked as well, but City's still bad. Unfortunately, ball watching. Yeah. We're sorry.
Yeah, it does sound like on the Cardinals thing. Last thing, Arenado's gone. And Sonny Gray is gone, it sounds like. So it's going to be a whole new team, at least from like a star perspective. Lots of air quotes around the stars for both of them. But it'll be interesting. But yeah, City rattled off a couple wins, I think, but still not good.
No. And again, as we said last podcast, like, the Blues right now are the lone hope for St. Louis sports, I think, right now.
Battlehawks.
And Battlehawks, right? But they still can never get past that semifinal game.
And Duggan's gone, so
and Duggan's gone.
Gonna win
Oh man, I actually didn't know that. Okay,
yeah.
well that definitely changes things.
I'm just kidding. He was okay.
Yeah, he was okay. And also, what was probably the worst part of my day today was not reflecting on last night's loss to Cal or TCU's loss or the Cardinals losing, the Cubs getting swept. It was the Ryder Cup today. It was the United States after really a horrific Friday and Saturday, playing in the foursomes and the four-ball play, decide, you know what, we're going to show up on Sunday and make it interesting. And they made it interesting for a long time. And starts out the day, though, with Harris English and Victor Hovland's match becoming an automatic half for both teams because of an injury, which I think we can debate that all we want here. And there's two sides of the story, but what a bull crap rule. I'm sorry. Like, it's just, I heard that the United States won the Ryder Cup in this way. And I think it was the early 90s. Nick, fact check me on that.
91.
But still, like, it's either you surrender the point or somebody has to like step in, because that was such a crucial point that could have totally changed that day for sure, especially with how great the United States was playing. So I'm so mad.
I mean, they virtually had to win almost every match or not lose to, like, the odds were very much stacked against them. And if you looked at the putting statistics, Europe had 8 of the 9 best putters for the weekend on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if you're expecting to be competitive, if that's the case, it's just not going to happen. Friday and Saturday were torturous.
Yeah.
And we're 2 for 2 in the last 2 Ryder Cups for a Scotty Scheffler cry. So that's never something you want to see either. Scotty has won 1 match, I think, for the last 2 Ryder Cups, which is just unbecoming of someone that's the number 1 player in the world. So I don't know what the problem is with the U.S. right now, but it doesn't seem like they play very well together on the team side, whether it's the playing the alternate shots or doing the 4-ball. Like, I don't know what the problem is, but Europe was dialed in the whole entire time. And today was really exciting. But to say that they were going to do it was still kind of a question mark, but at least we could have kept playing if it wasn't for the Hovland thing once Lowry made that last putt to tie Henley. So what are you going to do? They didn't deserve to win that, but what a heroic effort, honestly, today. That made me excited, but still they lost.
And some clutch putts on 18. It wasn't just domination like throughout. It was like
Thomas's putt to beat Fleetwood was awesome.
And he hadn't lost in the Ryder Cup, Fleetwood.
Yeah. Even Bryson's comeback too was crazy.
Yes.
Crazy.
And then it was so disappointing with Russell Henley. Just he'd been struggling all Ryder Cup, and then he gets into that one up on the 18th hole, willing to get your team to extend the match, and I just couldn't do it. And
2 chances.
Yeah.
2 chances to close out the match, and he left both putts short.
Yeah.
Which was brutal.
Very brutal. But yeah, it was a tough thing, and wish that the United States could have figured it out in some way. But again, I'm not going to criticize those rules too much, because it wouldn't have mattered technically, because they still would have retained at the end of the day, even if we got that point and won it, because the final was 15-13. So
it changes the dynamic, though.
No, it does.
It would not have been. I guarantee it probably would have been. It could have been worse. It could have been better, but it certainly probably wouldn't have been what it was.
Yeah.
Because they won with that half point. So everyone's the pressurized situation for Europe becomes completely unpressurized.
Right.
Once Lowry hit the putt, so it didn't matter. Everyone knew it was over. So that doesn't matter to me. I think that's a moot point.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I think it was just so fun just to have it back for the 3 days. And, obviously it'll next time be in Ireland, I think in 2027 at this time, which is crazy to think about. But I'm sure it'll be right back at us at some point. But President's Cup next year. So anyway, fun weekend of sports, but disappointing, I think, in most ends. I think at the end of the day, when we were looking at it, obviously you had Georgia, Bama, Penn State, Oregon, all of that. So it was a super fun day, except not really the outcomes that Nick and I would have wanted, at least for our respective teams and the United
None of
States.
our teams won. U.S. lost, Boston College lost, TCU lost, Cardinals got swept.
Yeah. And did City lose too? In fact, I think they may have.
Don't know.
Either way, Jake, you can probably tell us in the comments if he's around. But anyway, transitioning, talking about Blues defense right now. We talked about the offense and some of the hype around them, and we centered on a lot of guys, particularly Thomas, Kyrou, Holloway, all of our expectations with them. And I think at the end of the day there, we had a lot of high expectations, and specifically for a guy like Holloway, see what he can do with consistency. But one thing I wanted to add, though, before we started the defense was that all of the hype with neighbors. And I've been seeing a lot of things that they anticipate him making a really huge step this year. And I just thought that was interesting to bring up because there are a lot of people are expecting neighbors to get like 30 goals this year. I've seen a lot of Puck Umpire was saying that, which is a big Instagram hockey account. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I never really thought of Neighbors as a 30 goal scorer type of guy. But at the same time, I understand where he's coming from because, I mean, he's still really young and still has a lot of potential, but we just don't know what that really full range is yet. And we've seen 2 consistent 20-goal seasons. So I'm not sure if you had any thoughts of that. I was just curious, but it kind of surprised me a little bit seeing that.
I have not seen that, but I would find it really hard to believe that Neighbors are going to score 30 goals.
Yeah,
it just depends on his line. But
yeah, I think that's what it depends.
If you're not going to play with the best players on the team, it's going to be really hard to pump in 30 goals.
Right.
I'm always surprised in the last 2 years that he's managed to score more than 20.
Right.
So I think that's impressive. That's impressive in and of itself. So if we can get another 20-goal season for Neighbors, I'm happy as a clam, but 30 is very ambitious in my opinion.
I agree.
To score in a season on the third line. Potentially.
Yeah, well, I think that's assuming maybe that he gets put higher on the.
Who are you going to send down?
Third. I have no idea. That's why I was curious by it. But anyway, thought I'd bring that up real quick. But so defensive pairings right now through the first couple. Again, it's hard to judge with the preseason, but we want to start it off with our first pretty easy one that was normal last season and probably is going to continue into this one. We have Parayko and Cam Fowler, and Colton Parayko played 64 games this past season. Dealt with a few injuries, so it was, but again, noticeably more difficult without him on the ice, without Parayko. Although there was, I think, a good amount of stretch there where Parayko wasn't in the lineup and they were still winning games. So that was a weird thing last year, but we played very well with him. But best year for him when it comes to overall goals, 16 goals, and with 20 assists for the guy, and averaging about 24 minutes on the ice every night. And for me, for a guy like Parayko, I think you're in an interesting situation with the Blues because it's like at one point, Parayko, you were nervous about him to be your number one defenseman. And last year, you get him on one of his best years ever when it comes to his whole complete game. And he's been steadily improving over the last 3 years after a kind of a little slump. So I think the question is, Nick, is Parayko going to be your number one defenseman? Can he be the same type of guy who was last year, who was not only a defensive threat, big body out there, but can also score 16, 15 plus goals with his 16. So where do you evaluate with Parayko's standing?
Yeah, I did a prediction for him a couple weeks ago,
yes,
and I'm gonna stick by it. I think he's gonna score a couple more. I don't think his ceiling is that much higher in the goal scoring department. Sorry to say, but I would totally take, and this was my prediction, 18 goals, 29 assists, and a plus 18 while on the ice is money for me. If he can pump in 18, I know his season got cut short a little bit towards the end, and he missed a good amount of games with that knee scope. So I think 18 goals would be safe. He's getting a little bit older. You never know how the body's going to hold up throughout a whole season. So I think 18 is pretty safe, and I would totally take it. So that's my prediction for Parayko.
18 goals.
And that's more than last year. Right.
So you think he can have more than last year? Yeah.
If he plays a fuller season.
482. Yes. Right. 482. Yeah. No, I think I get behind that for sure. And I just want I just want him to sustain his defensive ability. Like if it takes for him being a 13, 14 goal scorer, playing 82 games and playing a little more than 25 minutes on the ice every night and being your shutdown defenseman consistently and your number one guy, I think that's fine as well. So that's what I think where I'm at with him, because I think you have enough defensive guys that have offensive upside. Like when you think of Broberg and Falk and Cam Fowler, even Mayu, I don't necessarily think all the time that he is going to be called upon for these big offensive moments. But I think if he can do a similar thing like 13, 14, then I think he'll do the job just fine for the Blues, I think.
Agreed. Yeah. I want him to be a defenseman more than I want him to be a scorer.
I think that's where we're getting at. Yeah. And I'm with you there. And that's kind of how he was raised, I think. When you're like a 6, what is he, 6'8", 6'6", 6'7"? I don't remember.
Around there.
But around there. And when you're that height, you're not going to be. You don't need that offensive upside. You need to be able to protect the puck, throw your body, and just make some good defensive plays. And if the offense is great too, but those are your sole jobs. And I think he did great at that last season. And if he can continue, then it's an automatic great start for the Blues if he's playing well. And I think the best part of this Parayko success that we saw was Cam Fowler. He was a perfect complement for him, I think, this past season. And you could, I think, easily tell an improvement in Parayko when he had the most presence with Fowler on his pairing with him, like all of the time. And I think it's a perfect combination between those two. Like, he's a little smaller, also has some offensive upside, probably a little more than Parayko does. And also is a very good shutdown defenseman with them. It was plus 19 last year, 9 goals and 27 assists. So, I mean, if you have a solid, 25 to 30 goals between those two guys on your top pairing, you're set up for a ton of success, I think.
Yeah, I put him at 15 goals and 40 plus assists. Okay. So he played so well, and I don't think people really understand, like, he had such a good shortened season with the Blues, 9 goals and 27 assists. Like, that's really, really good for a defenseman like Cam. So if he can do what that prediction says, I'm going to be very, very pumped about that performance. And I think he's very capable, just given where the Blues are at with their lineup too. And he's a good distributor of the puck. He can score. So I feel really good about that as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah. And obviously we have to address the elephant in the room with the Cam Fowler signing. And this was a surprising thing for me to wake up to this morning, to see the Cam Fowler extension, which has him at 3 years, $6.1 million to lock him up for the next 4. So this one, which he's getting paid about 6.5 for, bumps him down a solid $400,000 for another 3 years after this. So to give my take on it, I think that this is a good move, considering that you have a guy who locked up who can play with your number one defenseman every given night, and a very trustworthy guy as well, veteran presence up there. I think it makes sense. The money is where I think you could have maybe done a little bit better, but at the same time, that cap is going to rise over the next couple of years. So 6.1 million now is so much different than it was 3 years ago, And so I think people have to take that into account. Obviously, again, it's still a lot of money for a guy who's 33 years old, but I don't know. I think that contract, when you look at it, especially if his numbers stay relatively the same to what we saw last season and before that, I think it could actually pay off to be a very good contract.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I thought that they would wait it out a little bit longer. I know there's probably a lot of pressure to get him locked up from both sides, whether it be the Blues or Cam's team there. But He's 33. He obviously had some pretty bad seasons prior on the Ducks, and you'd really, really hate to have someone like Cam really take a step back and you have him for the next 3 years after this season. So that worries me a little bit. We're looking at a 37-year-old by the time this contract expires, and he has a full no trade clause for the first 2 years, and he has a no move clause except for like 15 teams, I think, on the last year of the extension. So that worries me a little bit. You don't want to be caught with a bad contract where you're paying, $6+ million to a really, a much older defenseman. But if Cam can sustain his play, great contract. But it just really depends on that. And that's why I thought they were going to try to wait and see at least, a few months into the season and see how he's producing. But I understand the need to lock up good defensemen. They're few and far between. So I get it from that perspective. But there is risk for sure in signing him to a 3-year extension when he's going to be 37 when this contract's up.
Yeah. No,
you cannot move him. You cannot move him unless he waives it.
No, I think that's the killer is the no trade, because when we have defensemen coming up in the pipeline here the next 3 years, I'm thinking Jaracek, I'm thinking Theo Lindstein, right? Those guys I think could maybe replace his stature on that blue line if the development goes well. So I think that the no movement and just maybe not having much flexibility with it is maybe the kicker there. But again, why would we ever want to move him if he had the same season as he did last year? Because it was perfect, I thought. And literally probably got the Blues to the playoffs last year. And again, there's a lot of factors, but he was one of the sole ones.
Especially when Parayko got hurt. I mean, he played an integral role in continuing the streak and the push into the playoffs. He played a pivotal role. Right. So keep that up. No one's going to ask questions about it. The only other thing I'm worried about is there are a lot of people that need to be resigned and extended. So you have Holloway and Broberg's contracts coming up, and if you're trying to fit into the cap, I know it's going to rise, and we're going to have a higher ceiling there. But if Holloway has a good season and you're looking to lock him up, he's probably going to be looking for something around a Kyrou Thomas type contract. Yeah, and Broberg more of the same, I would imagine, because he's the defenseman that you just can't let go. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to probably make some decisions and try to maybe offload some cap. I don't know how they're going to necessarily make it work, but it'll be interesting to see the way that plays out, because you're promising $18 million for the next 3 years after this season to an older defenseman and hoping that he doesn't take a step back.
Right. Yeah. So it's funny. One of my buddies from here just asked an interesting question in the Instagram. He said outside of Parayko, not a lot of true size in the D-corps. Bruins fan, by the way. Does that cause a physicality issue on the defensive end this year? And well, first of all, education is needed. Mayu, this new guy, is I think 6'5", something like that, right-handed defenseman. And so I think when it comes to the physicality and the size with those two, you have pretty big guys. Cam Fowler's over 6 foot. Falk's just 6 foot. Broberg, I think, is like 6'2", 6'3", and Tucker's right around there too. So I don't necessarily think it's a huge size problem on the Blues end of things. Do I think it could get bigger? Absolutely. I think it could be even more effective. But where do you balance the need for offensive talent on the defense versus the need for big size? And I think the Blues, are in a good happy medium right there, Nick, I would say. So,
yeah, I would say it is sort of a concern, but I don't think it's as bad as maybe what people think. You have Broberg, who is 6'3". I just looked it up. Parayko's 6'5", and Mayu's 6'4". And Mayu, there are still question marks around Logan Mayu. So let's not act like he's going to be this lockdown defenseman just because he's tall. That's not really the way that works. So I'm not as concerned for the physicality. I think the Blues are a pretty physical team, even not, despite not being that big. So I think we have that going for us, just a little bit more grit, I would say, than the average team, which can carry you a little bit further if you are a bit undersized. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but like when they won the cup, like we had some big defensemen, we had some big boys back there, and they were very physical as well. So it's not something that can just be brushed off, but I think they're skilled enough back there where it shouldn't be a problem.
I would probably tend to agree, but when it comes to, and we'll get to that time in a second, but Mayu hasn't looked that bad in these preseasons, and actually has seen some good offensive minutes from him as well. But let's changing gears outside of Fowler and Parayko. So again, Fowler, 4 more years in St. Louis. Get used to him. It's going to be, I think, a really fun 4 years, I hope, because this is right around that time in that 4 years when it may be that window starting to open again for the Blues. So he's entering at a great time and signing with us right there as well. So then Broberg and Falk would be the second pairing as what last season was. Broberg is going to be probably the I think at the end of the day is going to be the biggest experiment back there. And I know that he was last year the same thing. We just didn't know what we were going to get from a guy like him. But played 68 games, 8 goals, and 21 assists. Had a great start to the season, kind of died down towards the end, but still was a great defenseman out there and very trustworthy right there. But Chris Pronger said something really interesting, Nick. I put it in one of our clips that we posted. So if you're a defenseman and you haven't played, I think it was 300 games in the league already, you really haven't found yourself yet. And Broberg hasn't obviously played that yet. He's getting up there, but he's still trying to establish himself, I think. And we saw some struggles when it comes to his overall play and keeping it at the same level throughout that season. Again, he had a great season last year, but the people are wondering, $8 million for a guy like him. That's what the words that are kind of floundering around St. Louis. Is he worth that right now at this stage? Absolutely not, I think, in my opinion. But again, he's so young. He has a lot of potential ahead. So where do you see Broberg?
I think Broberg's going to have a really good year. I really do. I think he's going to probably score more. In my prediction, I said 13 goals, 34 assists. That's money. I mean, you pay that guy a lot of money, as especially if he's locking people up on the defensive side. Again, like it always goes back to, we want our defensemen to score goals, especially if they're capable, which Broberg absolutely is. We saw it last year. Mm-hmm. But you also want them to be good defensemen. And I think Broberg is a good defenseman. He's big. He's very fast, really good skater as well. And he's got decent vision too. And I think he's going to be much more involved in the scoring category, whether it be goals or assists. So very bullish on Broberg. And when you play well, which I assume he was going to, and I hope that he does, you're going to have to pay him a lot of money. Yeah. So I hope we have to pay him a lot of money. That's the best possible scenario. But I do worry just again about the cap, I guess, on the side. But that's not something I'm very concerned about right now. I think he's going to have a great year. And I look for him to take a step up. I think he's going to be better this year. Not that he was bad last year. I thought he was great and honestly overachieved my expectations of what he would be. Same goes for Holloway. So excited about him, and I think he's going to have a good year.
Yeah, and then I think another advantage with Broberg this year that could help him have another good year is that I think Justin Falk playing with him with most of his time. Again, we clown on him a lot, and I think it's a little too much sometimes. So I'm going to try and take a step back from that this season. But again, all depending on how he plays. 78 games from him, so a lot of games compared to some of the other defensemen with us. And then 4 goals and 28 assists from him. So he had more points than Broberg did last year, played more games, but was -9 overall compared to +21. So again, this is a tough one for me. Obviously you had the Falk prediction. I remind me of that in a second, but I don't know. I'm just thinking that Falk can have a very similar season last year, and I think can even probably play within those same points and probably improve the plus-minus too, if you have Broberg at a very consistent level like you did this year.
Yeah, I would hope. I still had him as a -4 overall, 6 goals, 22 assists. His last few seasons on the Blues just have not been good. And that there is a caveat there because the Blues were not good prior to last season for a couple of years. So that does skew those numbers a bit. But I've seen his stats the last couple seasons. I know the season prior to last, he had a pretty shortened season. So I maybe underestimated how many points he would have, perhaps. But I don't think we're going to get a huge step up from Falk this year. We have, I think, enough context in his career to understand the type of player he is. I just hope he can limit his mistakes in the defensive end. Sometimes he looks really good, honestly, and other times he looks really bad and makes critical mistakes. So if he limits that, has some help from Broberg on that second pairing, great. But he is definitely the defenseman that, in terms of the top two defensive pairings, that I worry about the most, and I think for obvious reasons.
Well, what'd you have him at for points?
28.
28. So that'd be lower than what it was last year. But again, if he improves his defensive ability but minuses a few points, I think it'd be fine personally. Just less turnovers from him. Sometimes he's just a little too careless, and obviously, it just depends on the night though. So, but remember, 3 seasons ago he had 50 points. So I think he's still in that capability of being an elite offensive defenseman that can also defend pretty well. But I guess we're done with that. But I just remember that 50-point season, and he made it look so easy that year.
Also, that year before, when the Blues were humming on the offensive side,
you
want to guess what his plus minus was on the ice in 2021, 2022?
Ooh. I mean, assuming your tone, it's in the minus. So, really? Okay. I'm going to guess then plus 28.
Plus 41.
Holy cow.
So that's insane to me. And the fact that he had that good of a year is just mind-boggling, given how much of a step back I feel like he's taken in the last couple of years. But wow. If he can do that at all, just a light trace of 2021, 2022, where he had 47 points, 16 goals, 31 assists, and eating up a bunch of ice time too. That is the prime Justin Falk that people would kill for. But I just don't know if that's really available. But man, would that be great?
Who was he playing with that year? Like on his pairing? I'm trying to think about who he would have been with.
I don't know.
Help us out in the comments section if you can. If we have a couple people tuning in. So Falk defensive pairing in 2022. I don't actually remember right now. So either way, hopefully has some high hopes though from Justin Falk, and we're gonna try and limit the amount of hate we give him, because he's an important member of this team, mind you. Top 4 defenseman for us for sure. And then finally with this third pairing, Tucker and Mailloux, and we already talked a little bit about Mailloux anyway, but in 8 games last season, 2 goals and 2 assists with a -5. And also with Tucker. Tucker had a big role last year, especially when Parayko went down, and also Nick Leddy went down for a while. And so I think you're going to see Tucker pretty much every game, unless you have, Kessel maybe supplementing in and out for him, depending on his play. But that Mailloux Tucker thing, and maybe Kessel, I think can be a sneaky third pairing. But again, they're young guys. Tucker doesn't have that veteran that he's going to be playing with. If it's that way, he's going to have a guy who he plays with that hasn't played that many games in this league. So that kind of concerns me a little bit. But again, it could be a different pairing. We just don't know. But that's just the projected line. So Mailloux and Tucker, Nick.
Tucker and Mailloux is an exciting pairing in my opinion. They're young. They do have a good amount of goal scoring capability. We saw that in the playoffs with Tucker last year. The thing about Tucker, and it's similar with Mailloux, is that they're young, they're inexperienced for sure, and you worry about there's turnovers in the defensive zone for sure, and that's something that worries me exponentially. But I'm assuming that coaches have been working with the both of them, especially Mailloux, because Tucker's been in the league for a few years now and has gotten some ice time, but that's got to sharpen up for sure. And I would imagine that Tucker won't play a full season, because I think they'll probably bring Kessel up here and there. Mailloux could drop out. You never really know who's going to be scratched and who's going to be playing. Right. So I could see some turnover on that line and some churn, but
Yeah.
I think he'll play a vast majority of the season. And I had him for 8 goals, 10 assists, pretty light. And I only had him playing 55 to 60 games.
Yeah.
And Mayu, I had him as 12 goals, 12 assists. I hope that's higher.
Yeah.
I hope that's higher, at least in the assist category. 12 goals would be great for someone like Mayu just jumping into a full-time defenseman role. So would love for that to happen. But I hope he gets some at-bats with a good forward line as well, where you're playing with Rob, you're playing with Kyrou Holloway. I'm assuming he will at some points during the game, which could really, really help his offensive output for sure. But I think you worry about with both of them on the defensive side way more than you do on the offensive side, at least in my opinion. But I have high hopes for them. I think they could be good, but it does depend on how well they operate on the defensive side. Because as we've been saying, be good defensemen and worry about the offense a little bit later. And that's kind of how I feel about them as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tucker, 8 goals seems a little high, but like he only had 3 last season,
but he scored 2 in the playoffs. Like it can happen, you know.
True. And he only played 38 games too, so
right.
I guess that does make sense. Yeah, 8 goals is not bad, maybe. But and then that Mayu, I hope you're wrong. I hope that he has 40 points this season. And I think judging from the way he's been talked about, it seems like that could be a possibility, but he's just so young. So it just really will be dependent on that. And then Matthew Kessel could supplement in there as well for games, depending on injuries and the play of Tucker and Mayu, by the way. So wouldn't be surprised if you see him coming in there. Played 29 games with the Blues this past season. And I think it's overlooked a lot because I think he's pretty steady back there when he's out there, if you would agree. So, and then finally, though, moving on to the goalies. We didn't want to miss this because this is, I think, an important year for goalie wise. Jordan Binnington, Joel Hofer come in, and they're being probably one of the best tandems in the league right now. And again, that's probably a really hot take, but when you look at the comparisons between both of them, number one, Binnington doesn't play as many games, 56 to 31 for him. And they also trust Hofer a lot. And they're not just putting Hofer in these meaningless games against, Chicago. Like they're putting him in these big games against Winnipeg, or a team like that. So I thought that was an awesome development last year because I don't think we saw that the year before. And I think you kind of saw a regression in the stats from Hofer as well when he saw that. He had a 904 last year, save percentage, 2.64 goals against, but went 16-8 and 3. So I thought a really solid season from him. And if we can get a similar one like that, maybe even a little better when it comes to save percentage, we're in a really good spot as a backup as Hofer.
I had Hofer at 30 starts, 909 save percentage. I think he's going to be good. I think Benner's going to get a majority of the starts, obviously. And I have Benner at 52 starts, 910 save percentage, better from last year. Both of them better from last year. I think they're both going to be better. Yeah. But we're going to need them to be better. I think, especially with that third line being so young and inexperienced. Yeah, they're going to need to stand on their heads a bit. And if they don't, I worry a little. And Binnington, Hofer, he got extended. He's another 2 years on the Blues after this year, or just this year.
No, I think 2 years after this year.
And Benner has another 2 years.
Yeah.
So they have him for the next couple seasons. And I agree with what you said. I think they're definitely, if not one of the top tandems in the league, as far as being able to bring in your backup goaltender and still expecting to win the game and not taking a step back is pretty great and a good luxury to have as an NHL team. So I think they're going to have really good years, and I feel confident in both of them.
2 years after 2 years starting this year. Sorry, 25 and 20 and 26 seasons he's signed for, and then 30s RFA again. But I think for Binnington this year, if we want to probably get into a better position playoff wise, rather than being the wild card number 2 this season, it probably has to be around that 905, 910 range for his save percentage. I think overall, again, 900 was fine, but he probably needs to just be slightly better. And I think of that season 2 seasons ago where he was insane. and was stealing hockey games for us left and right. And I don't think he has to do that anymore. The team is better, but I still think that they're going to rely on him to steal you a few games. And he did steal you some last season, but it wasn't on that same level as we saw a few years ago. So I think we can get behind that. And then Hofer probably has the same capability, just not as much, and just because he doesn't play those games, those big games as much. So overall, though, when it comes to predictions, and again, a lot of people have been doing this right now, is like the teams that they have as their playoff teams and what their predictions are going to be looking like. So curious to hear your thoughts. I'm going to say the Blues are going to make the playoffs this year. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be the wild card 1 spot. And again, I wish that they were a top 3, but the Central is just so stacked. And I'm just not sure if we're at a point yet that we can cut into that in the Central. So your take on that?
I would agree, but with the caveat of I think they could sneak into the 3 spot potentially, just depending on Winnipeg. Okay. I think Winnipeg's going to take a step back. I don't think they're going to be as good this year. I thought they overachieved anyway last year. If Hellebuck is really, really good, which he has been during the regular season, then they will be good. But I don't know if they're going to be good enough to solidify a top 3. But I will be safe and probably say wild card 1 or 2. And that doesn't mean they had a bad season. They could easily have 100 plus points and still be in the wild card discussion and be in that spot, just because Colorado and Dallas are going to have 113 points when it's all said and done. And then it's going to be a battle between 3 and then the 2 wild card spots for the entire Western Conference for the wild card. So, it's going to depend, but I think wild card is a safer bet than the top 3 in the Central.
Okay. Interesting. So we wanted to get those in. Finally got all of our predictions done. So now we only got a season in front of us now, which is a awesome thing to think about. And though there has been some preseason as well to talk about. So we already talked about Fowler, which was probably the biggest news of the preseason, if I'm honest, besides the games themselves. So the Blues are right now 0-2-1 in the preseason. You can take it as how you want to take it. I'm going to say that doesn't matter, but again, I'd also say that it did matter if they won. So I'm not going to say too much about that. But they lost in a pretty tough way last night against Chicago. You're up 2-0 going into the third period, and then you blow that lead and end up losing 4-2. And I know we were talking about this before, Nick, but most of that Blues core was playing. At least most of your big guys, absent a few though. Holloway wasn't playing, and also Binnington, when those goals were happening for Chicago, was not in the net for any of them. It was Will Cranley, who was immediately sent back down to the minors after that, which, I'm not going to say it was fully on him, but he had one pretty bad play back there, which I know that Jordan Binnington would probably be able to play back there, which was a goal behind the net, or he was handling puck behind the net and misplayed it, and then scored a goal as a result for Chicago. So that was an issue. But yeah, I mean, the worst part about it though with your core, Nick, is they had Thomas Snuggerud and Buchnevich combined for -6 that night. So that was the problem that I think we could get into a little bit. But what are your thoughts with the other games too?
I really, like you, I do not care about the preseason whatsoever. I don't think it matters. It's good to get a notion, if you will, of what players are going to be looking like and giving younger players and up-and-comers more time on ice. But if you look at the ice time, it's not what it would be normally at all. So I'm not worried about that. I think it's a bummer how they lost last night, but again, I'm not going to pay too much credence to the Blackhawks and how good they are for a heroic third period comeback. It's just not something I'm going to pay too much attention to. But no one on the Blues, actually, now that I'm looking at it, had a good plus-minus number on the ice. Everyone was either 0, -1, or -2. Right. So no one was exceptional last night when it came to that. So don't care about it. Totally fine. Give some players some looks, get them to full speed in the next week or so. And then, 10 days or so, we're going to be, dropping the puck on the ice and everyone's going to be at full speed. We're going full throttle. So not worried. And it's good that everyone's getting on the ice and getting up to speed.
Yeah. I will show this real quick. This was probably one of the highlight goals from last night. Look at this setup from the Blues. Parayko from Neighbors to Shen on that setup. And again, it came from that defensive zone and was just tic-tac-toe out there against the Blackhawks. And hopefully it's something that we can get used to seeing because that was awesome. And again, Parayko getting involved in the offense. So hopefully that can be brought into the season more. But that Shen, Neighbors, and Joseph, which we talked about probably being that third line, already showing some good potential right there. So that was I thought probably one of the more positive signs coming out of the preseason, I think, Nick.
Yeah, and Carbonneau was a sight for sore eyes too.
Yes.
Had a goal and an assist in those first 2 games. You got to love that. I know they sent him back down to juniors, which is fine by me. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that he was able to contribute in the preseason, gain some confidence, and know that he can play in the league. And he was good. So that's exciting. And I'm pumped up to see that. But the next 3 games, I will say, are going to be a little bit more testy in terms of not caring about it because more players are going to play and they're going to try to get ramped up. So if they continue to lose, then you're like, okay, what's really going on? Yeah. But again, I don't care about it. Even if they were to lose all the next 3 games, I'm not going to be hyper concerned about it until Thursday night in St. Louis against Minnesota. Yep,
I agree. And then the other actually interesting one coming out of those games was Jura Pekarczyk, who is and going to be playing for Springfield this season, but in the QMJHL last season had 24 goals for 67 points. So, and he had a pretty good season, or pretty good game for the Blues with a beautiful toe drag and spin around no looker that didn't result in the door, but in a goal, but was right on the doorstep, got his stick lifted from Carbonneau. So tough, but so he's been actually catching some eyes for sure. So maybe somebody to look out for. He was a 3rd round pick for the Blues in 2023. So
people are very excited about that. That little sequence was not something you see someone that's not going to get NHL time make.
Right.
So that was he's so young too. So you got to love that. A lot of good things that have happened in the preseason, I think. So even though they've lost a few games, you got to love the young guys looking pretty good and contributing.
Yeah. And then the one question mark, and they also lost to the Blue Jackets, and Carbonneau and Lucic assisted the Alexandrov goal, the lone goal from the Blues. And so the other question mark I was going to say is Milan Lucic, who's still on the team. He's on PTO right now. So a question on if he's going to make this team, and we don't know. I haven't watched these enough full through to really get a perspective on him. So I'm anxious to see what these next 2 games though have in store for him.
Yeah, he was hurt. So I know that impacted his play there, and I know he's slowly coming back. So I want him to make the team. You know how good he was a couple of years ago before he left the league for a little bit, but still, you got to be excited with what he has brought to the NHL and see if he can translate to the Blues, even at, what is he, 36, 37 years old now? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's definitely up there in age. It doesn't mean that he's, lost it or anything like that. So he's got to get ramped up. He really has to play a lot in these next few games, as long as he's healthy. And I know Monty's going to give him a fair look. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep him on the roster or not.
Yep, and these Bruins fans that are tuning in, I'm sure, are interested to see if he makes their team, because he was last time a Bruin, and pretty much the big part of his career was as well. So we're excited to see what can happen there as well. But overall, though, when it comes to the rest of the roster, so you had Alexandrov, who was sent down, not surprising there. You had no other really big names that were sent down in this most recent one. Hugh McGing, Matthew Pekka, again, Jura Pekarczyk. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And then just some defensemen, and then the two goalies that were, not really competing for much, but it was Cranley and Zarenko. So Colton Ellis still remains, though, who had a good game against Dallas. But to me, though, Nick, it's hard to make any conclusions, though, I think, at the end of the day from these. And they're just, I think, tune-ups for this team, and whether or not they can start the season off on a high note against Minnesota literally in the next 10 days here. I think 11 days, which I'm counting down the days. I don't think I even told you this yet officially, but I am scheduled to be coming home for that game.
Kids coming back.
Kids coming back. Big fall break from BC. So we'll see if my flight gets in on time. I'm going to be coming in hot, Nick. I'm going to be literally if there's like a 15-minute delay, I may not even make the game. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, but we'll hopefully bring you some content from there as well at Enterprise Center. Come for that. So Blues Hill have 3 more preseason games until then. They have another game against Chicago, and then Ottawa and Dallas. So they're going to get some vast experience, I think, against those 3 teams, and just get more minutes, I think, at the end of the day, and really get adjusted. I haven't seen Kyrou yet. I think he's the only guy that hasn't been playing yet. So I'm sure we'll see him at some point.
Yeah.
And we'll see what he can do. And a lot of people are saying that he's going to be in that same range. Maybe it's 40. If you listen to our offense preview, we were hyping him up that maybe this could be it, or maybe it's still the same range as normal. Regular season puck drop October 9th, Thursday. Hopefully I'll be there for it. And then another bit of news before we get into our big news is Chris Pronger is out right now. If you guys haven't listened to it yet, please listen to it. It's an outstanding interview, and he gets into so many different topics, not just about his career, but about the Blues and some updates from him about what he's writing a book right now. So please listen to that if you haven't. It's an outstanding interview. And then on top of that, we actually mistakenly put it on. So if you guys have been tuning in for the last 52 minutes, then you probably saw in the first 5 minutes that it said Robert Thomas on there. And big thing happened last week. We got to film a pretty good size interview with him. It was like 45 minutes, 50 minutes with Robert Thomas. And Nick and I had a very nice casual conversation. We knew that there wasn't a lot. There was plenty of podcasts that surrounded his career, but we just wanted to hear his story about this season and last, and just to see what his thoughts were on it. And I thought he made some really good points. So hyping that up, and I'm sure we'll release a little clip at some point this week. But Nick, hopefully we're gonna get that on the airwaves soon. It's gonna be exciting.
Unreal interview. And obviously the interview with Pronger was fantastic. But Rob, you get a current Blue. He gets you an inside look on what happened last year inside the team, and what he thinks about this year's roster, what he thought about training camp, and his expectations for this year. So got to tune in. It's a can't miss.
Yeah, and his golf game could have maybe been better than some of these U.S. guys that were playing today, by the way. So tune into the end of that podcast to hear his handicap, because it's quite something, by the way. Surprised the heck out of me. And then finally, speaking of golf, we have a very different sort of bit of content coming out this week. And in association with ball watching this summer, what is it, like now 2 months ago now, we filmed a little golf video for charity, a little Bob Does Sports, Grant Horvat style video that was a little 2v2 scramble, all benefiting the Head and Neck Cancer Tumor Center at Barnes Jewish Hospital, which is near and dear to Nick and mine, and I know Jake and Justin's hearts at ball watching. And we raised some good money. But more importantly, the video of the whole thing is coming out this week. And you guys have a chance to be involved in either one of two things. You can either give to our cause, where our goal was at the first part was to get like 6,000. We're hoping to really get by that for sure. Hopefully just demolish that goal. And then also number 2, you can be a part of our auction, which has 2 different items, and I don't want to mess this up. So I'm going to pull it up to give an exact replica of the website here. Nick, if you want to know it off the top of your head, but I just don't want to make sure I don't mess it up.
For us, what we were able to offer is a Blues game day experience. Yeah. So we have 2 tickets for any Blues fans that would want to partake, and a Zamboni ride as well.
There you go.
You get to ride on the Zamboni during the game, and you get 2 tickets to a Blues game. Assuming you'd have to work that out with the Blues on what games would be necessarily available and what wouldn't. But great opportunity. Blues are going to be fantastic this year, so you got to make sure to put your bids down on that. And the Zamboni ride is always a fun time. Wave to the crowd, get a little notoriety there, so that's fun. Right. And City, you get, what was that, Luke? You get a City gift basket. That includes a signed team jersey, tickets, and more. So there's still some out there within that gift basket, but you get a team jersey signed and you get City tickets. And City is going to be better next year for sure. And I think all of us kind of know that they've underachieved this year. So just because they're having a rough year doesn't mean that you should be necessarily unexcited when it comes to the next season or in the future. So great opportunities to get some great items from both teams here, and it's all going to a really good cause. And I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Enjoy the content. It was a blast filming it. It was 108,000 degrees outside that day, and that's what I'm gonna blame on the poor play, I guess. But you guys are gonna have to tune out to let me know if I actually played badly or not. But still.
Yeah, I think it'll be and I didn't play very well either, but again, I think the audience will know, Nick, what.
Well, let's be honest. The ceiling's not very high. So if people knew the handicaps, maybe they would offer some grace there. But it is what it is. All for a good cause. It was a blast filming it. If you're still having that Ryder Cup fever, especially, yeah, you got to make sure to tune in, at least for the enjoyment aspect. And if you can give some money to donate to a great cause and place a bid on these great items, we would really appreciate it.
Yep, 100%. And yeah, so these are the links to this link is the auction, and this will be available on our YouTube after this podcast to give. And then and also in the upper left corner, right? There you go. Right above me is a little QR code, and that is the giving link. Is that you don't even care about the auction, you just want to give to the cause, whether it's $5 or $20 or whatever you can give. We would really appreciate it to go to this cause, and I'm sure the folks at Ball Watching as well would be equally appreciative of it as well. So that's going to be out. I think there's going to be a teaser coming out. I think the teaser may have actually came out as we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
So tune into that. Build some hype for you. I think it's going to be out Wednesday. So until then, hopefully you can maybe at least see the bid on one of these items. If not, we would really, again, appreciate going to this great cause and the giving link, which is in the QR code, again, right above me. So appreciate you, though, for tuning in. It was an hour talking about good Blues stuff, preseason, defense. Man, it just feels better and better every day knowing that Blues hockey is so close. And
almost here.
One more week. And then also I'm going to Buffalo this weekend. So I will have my own sporting experience this weekend, distracting myself from the football that I saw yesterday.
Bills Pats. Let's go.
Bills Pats. We'll see what happens. But until then, we'll be back soon with a Robert Thomas interview, and we'll get that on the airwaves right around next week on this Sunday-ish night. But until the Blues opener next Thursday, hopefully that's the next time you'll see us live. Maybe we'll do a little preview for you. So catch you then. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
See you guys.